point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to Real Talks After Dark. I'm your host, David Steele. So I thought I'd come to you guys live tonight to not only kick off the what I'm going to be doing, but this is going to be one of the first movies here for the new year. So I should say Happy New Year. Hello, Dadpool. Good to see you here. So that's yeah. So that if you hear me say or future references, Happy New Year, that's what this is going to be. This is going to be the first video of 2025. You guys are catching it live. I was going to record a couple days ago, had some problems. Anyways, finally got them corrected, taken care of. So, and if anybody who just saw the clip there, I kind of left it under wraps. What we were doing, we're going to be doing one of the great movies of the 1980s, I think, but really a perfect movie in my opinion. That's Wall Street. So many things to say about this movie, and we're going to get to it in a couple minutes. This movie really was, I think it's not only a perfect movie, but I think it's really a referendum and editorial on the 1980s. And that quote you just heard there from Gordon Gekko or Michael Douglas really summed it all up, right, guys? It really summed up the 1980s. It was excess, it was greed, it was wanting too much, it was big things, it was big hair, big music, everything. But more importantly, it was just greed. And this movie really put a mark on that. And Oliver Stone is, we talk about all the great directors of the last 25, 30 years, the Scorseses and the Spielbergs and, the Paul Thomas Andersons. And, Oliver Stone doesn't get enough credit. He really, really doesn't get enough credit. He has put in 7 years, he put together a collection of fantastic films. And I mean, I just want you to take a look at these guys because some of these films we still hold, they're amazing films. I mean, Wall Street we're doing tonight, you look at Natural Born Killers. I did the retrospective for that last year. You guys can go check that out. I will leave a link down in the description box for you guys to go check out on that. You have Born on the 4th of July, which, Tom Cruise he gets all this flack for not being an actor, in Mission Impossible and Top Gun, but he has chops, no doubt about it. The man has chops, and all you got to do is take a look at his resume. I mean, Magnolia, he can even do comedy and Tropic Thunder. You got, Born on the 4th of July, stated there, Collateral, The Last Samurai, so he can act. And then, of course, you've got something like Platoon. And in the 1980s, you had all these war movies coming out, mainly Kubrick with Full Metal Jacket, which is one of my favorites. Platoon was right up there. And then in the 90s, he goes on and does a lot of other good films. The Doors, I mean, it's a smaller film, but Val Kilmer was really good as Jim Morrison. Nixon, I mean, one of the most embattled and troubled presidents of our generation. JFK. I mean, one of the greatest mysteries in political, in the political landscape today. Big cast too. Kevin Costner, Sissy Spacek. John Candy makes an appearance there. And one of my personal favorites, and anybody who's a sports fan should love this, Any Given Sunday. This movie, and I did this for the retrospective, and I'll leave that down in the description box for you guys. This just turned 25 last year, but it's a phenomenal movie. The writing was on point. The action, I mean, it felt like you were actually in the game. The cast, Jamie Foxx, Al Pacino. I mean, legendary actor himself, but Al Pacino, Cameron Diaz. Then you actually have authentic people, authentic um, football players like Lawrence Taylor, like a Jim Brown to bring authenticity to the role. So I mean, when we talk about something like Wall Street, this is just once again, and it's an amazing movie all the way around, and that's why this is going to be the perfect movie of January. So so before we get into the story, okay, it's interesting because the stars, I mean, speak for themselves, right? I mean, on the left there, you've got, this is one of the first times too. I mean, a couple years ago, you had Forsaken with Kiefer Sutherland and his father Donald, but this is one of the first times that I can remember that a father and son paired up. And of course, you had Martin Sheen and Charlie Sheen. And, he did 2.5 Men and some other stuff, but this was really one of his great, great roles. Ended up being nominated for an Oscar, didn't win it, but, the guy to his right ended up winning it. And it was Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas is Gordon Gekko. When we talk about great villains of this generation, we have Darth Vader, we have Hannibal Lecter, and I think Gordon Gekko really has to be in the mix. The way he was able to lean into this super billionaire who didn't give a rat's ass about anybody really was great. And not to mention, we have the beautiful Daryl Hannah in this movie. And don't forget, guys, she just came off doing Splash a couple years earlier, okay, with Tom Hanks. So she's right at her peak of stardom at this point. And so we get a little backstory into who she is and why she's so important to this story. And so it just worked all the way around, and it was a phenomenal story. Now, anybody who is not familiar with I'm not going to go blow by blow because I'm not going to bore you guys. You can sit down and watch it. But what I am going to do is run a few numbers by you real quick, because it is fascinating to see how this is today compared to where it was in 1987. And that's when this movie was made. So this was actually, believe it or not, guys, this was actually a Christmas movie. I didn't say Christmas. It wasn't necessarily December 25th, but it was released in December. So it was released December 11th, 1987. Okay. Incredible time to put this out. So as I said, I ran through so you had Michael Douglas, Charlie Sheen, Daryl Hannah, and Hal Holbrook's in this, believe it or not, as his boss. Legendary actor Hal Holbrook got a part as Charlie Sheen's or Bud Fox's boss. It's not a big role, but it isn't enough to sway some people to actually sit down from the older generation. Go, oh, my goodness, that's Hal Holbrook, and then make them turn on the television. So, and then you had a very young James Spader in this, who had a small little part and everything else. So once again, this was written by Oliver Stone and Stanley Weiser, directed by Stone, and so it was just, he was at his legendary points at that time. So opening weekend, I always used to talk about money, and I'm not so much about the money now, but I think it is fascinating to actually take a look at the numbers back then. So back then, this opened to, now if we get a wide release today, guys, it's about 3,000 theaters. So the wide release back then was 730 theaters. Think about that for a minute. So it's about a third of it, right? Not even a third of it, about 25% if you're lucky. $4.1 million. That's all it made opening weekend. $4.1 million. Now, it ended up doing a little bit better, and but adjusting for inflation, it made about $116.5 million, which, obviously today is trash, but back then is pretty good. Um, so so this basically follows the story of Charlie Sheen's character, Bud Fox, and he's a struggling stockbroker, and he's working, cold calling and everybody else, and he's trying to land that big. He's a hot shot, but he's not the hot shot, and he's trying to land that big client that would like be able to trade. He could be to trade because they work on commission, and so he goes and he's trying to get Gordon Gekko. He's trying to get his attention and everything else. So finally goes to his office. So after calling him for 59 days in a row, imagine you're a secretary, 59 days in a row. So they know him by first name and everything else. So he visits Gordon on his birthday, and he brings him a box of Cuban cigars. Contraband, trying to do that. So he goes in, and he grants him an interview, and he pitches some stocks to him, and Gordon just waves him off and says, "Okay, buddy." So he comes back and says, "Okay, look, I have an inside tip about this airline. My father works at it, and he'd been with the company for over 20 years, toiled with them and everything else. And so he's like, okay, I'll think about it." And so he gives him this tip, okay, that nobody else had because his father was the source. And so, in all honesty, so he's like, okay. So he's like, okay, fine. So he basically says, okay, you can do it. So when he makes a trade with him, okay, and then he brings him down to, sits him down at lunch, and that's his shot here. And he's like, here's the check, buddy. And it's a check for, well, we don't know how much it is, but we know it's more than he's ever seen in his life. Okay, million, $2 million, whatever. And now he's got a foot in the door. Now, the thing is, once you get your foot in the door, it's a matter of you have to keep your foot in the door. So Gordon basically says, okay, guy, I want you to get the information. I don't care how you get it. Okay. So, of course, Gordon has his fingers in all these different pies. So then he wants to follow this guy. And so he gives him another chance. And he basically wants him to spy on this person who is like, he's an investor. He's a British investor. So then they realize he's going after a certain company. So Gordon makes a play at it, okay? And Wildman, that was his name, he basically forces him to buy off it for the takeover. So becoming that big megastar that he wanted, okay, he goes over to Gordon's house one night and says, "Listen, I have some papers for you to sign and everything else." And that's where we see Daryl Hannah's character. Long story short, he gets deeper and deeper and deeper into this character. And, he's lavish this, lavish that, but he's working 50, 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week. He's got, stuff in his brand new apartment. He's got a brand new girlfriend on his arm, completely forgetting where he came from. And then it all starts to crumble. And so eventually what ends up happening is because of the inside training he does, he gets arrested. And when he gets arrested, so what really turned him was his father having a heart attack. Okay. So at that one point, um, Gordon basically went on his word. He went back on his word. And he said that he wasn't going to tear apart Blue Star, but he then did. And so then he double crosses Gordon. And so what eventually ends up happening is that not only does he get double crossed, but then he has to go and essentially save himself. So that's when he goes and he wears a wire. And he wears a wire and basically says, look, I gave you everything. I gave you Darien. I gave you all the tips. I gave you how to get information, and this is how you pay me. So that's the story of Wall Street. But the reason why this is so good, the reason why I'm doing it for a perfect movie, is because it is one of those things where, first of all, like I said at the very beginning of the stream, it's an editorial. It really isn't. It's an editorial on the 1980s. It's greed. And it all goes back to that one, the biggest thing that everybody remembers out of everything is that 4 minute scene when he's going to take over that company. And he basically, you saw that small little snippet there. He's like, I'm not a liberator. I'm not a destroyer of companies. I'm a liberator. And greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed for life, greed for knowledge, greed for power, greed for money has made the upward surge and will save the United States of America. Now, whether you believe that or not, that's your own opinion. But just the fact that you had somebody to actually come out and say that, because listen, we've had other editorial movies before. Namely, the last one out there was The Big Short, right? With Steve Carell and Ryan Gosling and everything else. This, and you have to remember something else too, guys. There was a huge crash a couple of years earlier. Okay. So Oliver Stone really wanted to put his viewpoints out there. This is it's a fantastic movie on so many different levels. I loved, first of all, the acting was amazing. Second of all, the fact that I think they were able to film it all in one city. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. Because when you have to go to location after location after location, it costs a lot of money and everything else. Now, clearly, you saw it didn't make a lot of money opening weekend or uh, after the fact. But this was never going to be a huge blockbuster. I mean, that's not what it was going to intend to be. But the fact that you could save money and actually um, film it all in one city, like a Heat, like a Collateral, like a Wall Street, really says something in what it was. This is, I think, of all the films, and look, Oliver Stone has made a plethora of films in his lifetime. And I'm not even talking about Snowden. That's not even on the list, which I think I don't know about you guys, but I love Snowden. Okay. Jordan Gordon left playing Edward Snowden. That's another whole quagmire, about privacy and security and everything else. But that, I think, of all the films there, is his masterclass. I really do. And I love Natural Born Killers. It was ahead of its time. Okay. JFK was amazing. Okay. The fact that you can do a Any Given Sunday as an action film and have the stars behind it, like an Al Pacino and a Cameron Diaz, who was big at the time and everything else, and then a Wall Street, not to mention a Nixon. I'm not even mentioning the Doors. I'm Platoon. This guy is just a cinematic genius. But of all those films, I still contend that Wall Street is his best film. And it was proven by, Michael Douglas winning an Academy Award for his role as Gordon Gekko. Now, truth be told, there are some times where, because everybody wants a sequel. If it makes a lot of money, everybody wants a sequel, and they always want to see a second part. Now, I've always said this. I think you have about any movie that comes out, theatrical movie that comes out, you have about a 3 to 5 year window once the movie comes out to really start on the next chapter. And by the way, most people are starting on the second chapter. Okay. I mean, look, just take somebody off the top of their head. Look at Christopher Nolan. Okay. When Batman Begins was finished wrapping, he was already working on The Dark Knight. Okay, he already knew what he wanted. Now they had to sit down. He and his brother had to write the screenplay and everything else, but he had an idea. There are some sequels that should just never, ever be made. And it blows my mind. I mean, Ghostbusters 2 is probably another one of those sequels. But when I heard they were coming out with this, I went, no. Wall Street Money Never Sleeps. Now, for anybody who's seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. Stars Josh Brolin, Shia LaBeouf. Michael Douglas reprises his role as Gordon Gekko. And it has to be one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that, because I hope all movies succeed. But this had to be one of the worst movies I had ever seen in my life. Now, luckily, I didn't pay money to see this, so I was fortunate in that fact. But I will say that they had no business making this movie. None. Zero. And I think, they basically had to get on their hands and knees and have Michael Douglas come back and reprise the role. Otherwise, this movie was going to take off. And it didn't. Carey Mulligan was Shia LaBeouf's love interest. And, Josh Brolin played a banker and everything else. Excuse me. But it just didn't work. And I think this is one of those times where they should have just shut it down. And I think that anybody, like I said, anybody who's seen this movie knows what I'm talking about. They really do. Because it was so disjointed. It was just, it's one of those movies you see once and then you put it away. But getting back to the original, because that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Wall Street is tremendous on so many fronts. It has the political angle, okay? It really has when you talk about thrillers, it had every little nuance you wanted, okay? It had sex, it had power, it had money, it had greed, it had all of those. It had all of those. What was the secret between Darian and Gordon? How did, why was, Bud able to get Darian, everything else? Then you had the betrayal and everything else. I really think Wall Street is tremendous. And it's really worth a rewatch. If you haven't seen this in a long time, guys, it's worth sitting down and watch. Now, I've said this before. I think it's his masterclass. Now, he's made so many other films that you can, you can pick one out and that could be yours, But for me, I think Wall Street is a top-notch movie. Yeah, I mean, just from the budget it was made of, it was only 1 point. I mean, just take a look at some of this imagery here. The night this was made in 1987. You see the computers, the Apple computers. You had seen that's a cool little shot of Holbrook in the background there. Legendary actor. The fact that Oliver Stone was able to land him and do that, tremendous. And I like the secrecy behind it too. I mean, for example, we don't know how much Gordon's giving him a check for, and I think that's important. He just says here, go have some fun, were his exact words. Go have some fun and enjoy the night. Then you had, like I said, the acting was there with Martin Sheen, his father, and I think there's something to be said about that, right? Because when you're acting with your father, yes, there's pressure, but it's a little more, relief. And I mean, take a look at IMDb. That is one of the 4 roles that Michael Douglas is known for. Really, the role, So, yeah, I mean, this wasn't going to be too long. But yeah, it really, the fact that And the fact that he came crashing down the earth too. I think there's something to be said about that, right? Because had he gotten away with what he did, there would have been something. But the fact that Stone and everybody wrote this in there and said, "Listen, okay, you have to go face face the music right now and take take the punishment." There's something to be said about that too. And because right now we're in a culture, and I'm not going to get into it, but we're right now in a culture where sometimes bad behavior is rewarded. So it's good to see movies being able to say, no, that's not right. So yeah, I think for everything that it has, even for being almost 30 years old, it's still it's still a perfect movie. And so I think it's an amazing film. And you know, when we talk about movies today and everything else, I used to be all about box office. Everybody that watches this and has watched this knows that. I ever since the strike, I've started to get away from all of that. It's for me, it's about what you because we've seen films that are really, really good make a really crummy amount of money. And on the other front, we've seen other films make, a lot of money if they're really, really poor. Okay. This for me is about what what good movie making is. It's a good story, it's good acting, the locations are there, everything works. Um, yeah, I think Wall Street is it's a top notch movie in my opinion, and it is a perfect movie. So this is I should yeah, it is a perfect movie, hands down. It is a perfect movie. Um, so if you haven't gone to see Wall Street yet, guys, or if you've seen it and you haven't watched it in a while, sit down and watch it. If you haven't, some movies may release with bad reception them over time becomes it. Yeah, no, absolutely, you're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely right about that, and that's so true. Um, the one I can think of off the top of my, I mean, look, we have Rocky Horror Picture Show, and this is before critics are. The one I think of off the top of my head is The Devil's Advocate. Now, anybody who's seen, speaking of, you know, Al Pacino, but anybody who's seen The Devil's Advocate in 1997 knows exactly what I'm talking about. That movie is so bad, but it's so good. Today, it's a cult classic. It is a cult. I mean, that last 10, 15-minute sequence with Al Pacino is legendary. Um, it's funny because when you look at who came out of that movie, you had Al Pacino, who's a legendary guy, who's going to go on and do Heat, or just did Heat in the 90s. You had Keanu Reeves, who's arguably one of the biggest superstars in Hollywood today, not named Tom Cruise. You had Charlize Theron, she's an Academy Award winner, okay, for Monster. She goes on and does The Fast and Furious. She does a couple other projects. And Taylor Hackford actually directed that movie. You say, who's Taylor Hackford? 2006, when he won Best Director for Red. So it's just crazy. No, you're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely right about that. And I think that you know this is why I do retrospectives. It's not about the here. It's about two things. It's about the here and now, and it's about 5 and 10 years from now. How are these movies going to be remembered? Not because it made $1 billion, but because it was that good. So in Wall Street, it still is a perfect movie. And I know I keep saying that, guys, and movies are subjective and everything else, but I've been watching movies for better part of 35 years. I would be very hard pressed to find anybody that doesn't think Wall Street's not a good movie. I really would. I really, really would. And it's not because it's just I can't I guess I can't articulate it unless you've seen it. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, like I said, this generation is The Big Short. So you're perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I mean, we got a lot of good. I'm not going to give any more. This was the first one. So if you like this one, stay tuned for this year as I get some bangers coming up, which is going to lead me into the segue to this is going to be a really short stream. This was going to be more of a video, but I wanted to stream this for you guys. So, a couple of things. Okay. Next week, Thanksgiving, by the way, guys, happy holidays to everybody. I hope you enjoy your holiday, safe holiday with all your friends and family and loved ones. The first week of December, that's when I'm going to really start recording now that I have everything figured out. So I have the first 6 months set up. And my plan is to record as many videos as I can in the next 3 weeks. And so this one here, Wall Street, this is the first of many. This is the first of many that you guys are going to be getting. This is going to, and I was going to say Happy New Year coming into the stream, but I thought it would be a little bit strange. So if you're watching this stream now, great. Congratulations, you caught an early glimpse. I'm going to unlist the stream as soon as I'm done. Upload this and schedule this for January 1st. So this is going to be a Happy New Year video for everybody. And then I have a ton of content coming up in January and everything else. So my plan is to do this. And anybody watch the channel update, I'm not going to run through all of it, but you guys will go back and watch that, and you guys will really understand everything. I'm going to do a couple of rewatches this year. Okay. I've got The Last of Us. I'm going to start watching. I've already got the first 2 episodes ready to go to be taped. Okay. I want to do Last of Us Part 2. Dexter. You guys voted for all those people that did. Thank you very much on Twitter and YouTube. And by the way, down there is my Twitter handle. Come follow me on Twitter, guys. I'm always on there talking about movies or in spaces about movies or whatever. So you guys voted. And it was either going to be The West Wing, which I had never seen, but it was the 25th anniversary, or Dexter. And so you guys voted, and it's going to be Dexter. So starting in April, okay, you guys are going to be once a week. I think we're going to call it TV Tuesdays or TV Thursdays. You guys are going to be getting 1 episode of Dexter a week. And there were 12 episodes, I think, in every season. And then that's going to run on for, however long it is. Now, look, I know they've done, New Blood, and they've got another one, Original Sin, coming out. I'm not going to cover those. Not yet, at least. Maybe that's next year. But right now, I'm going to do Dexter. That's not to mention, guys, you guys are going to be getting all the spoiler casts. As many as, we've got Captain America Brave New World coming out. We've got Mission Impossible coming out. We've got, of course, Superman, all that stuff. So you guys are going to be getting that. Plus retrospectives. So the last thing I'm going to say to you guys tonight is this. Memberships. Memberships are very important because this is what I want to do eventually. So I want to try and get this out to as many people as possible. Now, as it says on the bottom of the ticker, if you do nothing else, guys, you pop in, you leave. Thank you for, staying for a little bit. If you do nothing else, guys, hit that like and subscribe button. Because what that's going to do is that's going to help me get this out to everybody. And that's my goal. So here is the membership page. And I made it very cheap for everybody. As you can see, the cheapest I could make it, right? So what I did was I made it free for the first month. And the reason why I did that is because I want you guys to watch my content. I want you guys to enjoy it. I want you to get an understanding and see if you like it and really do want to support me or not. So there is 3 levels here. Okay. The first one is moviegoer, and that one begins at $2.99. very cheap. And the way I look at it, guys, is this: you buy a drink at Starbucks for $3. That's what you're going to be giving me on a monthly basis. $3. It's nothing big. The next one there is producer. Producer is the middle one. It's $6 a month. Now, producer also, if you like, I'm in LA. Now, I don't drive, but I do know people that drive, and they're paying almost upwards of $5 a gallon of gas. So, that being said, one more dollar, you're supporting me in that front. Or the big one, okay, and Dadpool, who's been here since the beginning, and I thank you for being a member for 16 months, is $9.99 a month. And the thing about that is this: Netflix just raises their prices, Hulu just raised their prices. You've got all these, Disney Plus just raised their prices. Everybody's raising the prices. Yes, they're putting them in packages, but they're raising their prices. I'm giving you all of this content: the Perfect Movie Series, the retrospectives, the TV rewatches, all of this stuff for $10 a month. This is what I want to do. This is what I love doing. I love sitting down talking to you guys about movies because I love movies. And, it's going to take a long time. I know that. It's a grind. This is going to happen overnight. But if I can get you to tell your friends about Real Talks, and their friends talk about Real Talks and everything else, that's how we get it going. And I've made it, like I said, extremely cheap for everybody. Look, here's what I say: become a member for a month, watch the content, see if you like it. If you don't like it, cancel. You're not going to hurt my feelings because I don't want to take your money. Okay? I'm not one of those people that's going to be out there trying to take your money. Okay? I'm honest about it. But I want to give you as much content, good content. And that, by the way, guys, that's why I'm spending extra money to come back to StreamYard. This, granted, it's not 4K, but it's 1080. So when you guys sit down and watch this, you're going to watch a good, halfway decent video. So that's why, putting the money into this, I'm hoping to get some support back in return. So those are the 3 levels. As I said before, if you do nothing else, guys, as it says in the ticker, hit that like and subscribe button. Okay, I'm going to try and put together something for, the new year. Maybe we'll try and do some giveaways. I don't know. I have yet to figure out what. Because I think that it would be fun. But this is where I really, and look, I watch YouTube all the time. I have content creators I watch, okay? And I would love to get some of them on here, okay? But they know what the grind is like to make videos and put it out there for you guys. And if they put it behind a paywall, I wouldn't be happy about it. So that's why I'm doing this. I'm giving it to you completely free for the first month. So that's the big thing, guys. And like I said, I know it's going to be a grind, and I'm willing to put in the work. I mean, I mentioned earlier, Dadpool has been with me for 16 months, ever since the channel started. 16 months, through good and bad. So you want to talk about, somebody who's loyal. I mean, and he has everything, and he's helping me out. So all the thumbnails you guys are going to be seeing for the next few, those are all his work. And I'm going to put if you like his work, I'm going to put his handle for X down in the description. Okay? Send him some love. I'm sure he's glad to do some thumbnails or some art for you guys for a small nominal fee. So I want to help him out too. And this is the best way for me to do that. Anyways, guys, for everybody that came in and, just tuned in briefly, thank you. I hope you come back. For all those that are going to be coming back, thank you. I normally wouldn't say this. I'm excited for 2025. I really, really am. because I'm starting to get the hang of this now with all these videos and everything else. And, you know, who knows where this is going to go. I am going to try and get some guests on. I'm no promises. I have a couple of people in mind. So, okay. With all of that being said, there are 3 things I always tell everybody to do. Number 1 is be safe. Number 2 is be careful. And number 3, in this case, have a good night. But for tomorrow, guys, have a great day tomorrow. So, with all that being said, I'm David Steele. You've been watching Real Talks After Darks, and I will see you later, guys. Bye-bye.